The Simagic Alpha Evo Pro is the 80Nm range topper from their new wheelbase generation. After spending a good chunk of hours getting to know it and understand it, I can safely say it has pros which would suit the majority of sim racers just fine, but cons that ring alarm bells for the hardcore minority. It's impressive in multiple areas, but personally lets me down a bit in others. Price gives ultimate context, and it's here where certain things can be forgiven. The Evo Pro is £731 as listed by Race Anywhere. That's cheaper than the Acertec Forte, Fanatec Clubsport DD, just to name a few, and they are all wheelbases with equivalent or lower on-paper power. So the Evo Pro remains pretty strong value for money, and it outperforms them on some important fronts. Let's have a look. Before I dive in, please be aware that this wheelbase has been provided for review by Simagic. I've not had to pay for it, and due to this arrangement, I mark videos like this as paid promotion within YouTube. However, it is a review, not an ad. Good and bad points are covered as I see them. Links to retailers that specialise in Simagic have been included in the video description. Buying from any of those using those links helps support me directly, thank you for doing so, but do check the full reseller list in case there's a more convenient option in your region than those I've handpicked. First up, a quick summary of what's ahead. The feedback is superbly clean, but it's not as raw, direct or unfiltered as some other systems, so may not suit everyone. There's definitely an underlying element of enforced smoothing or softness going on that can't be removed via options, and I personally don't perform at my very best with it as a result. Value for money is high, and Simagic just recently increased the warranty to 2 years minimum globally, which includes backdating for those bought before today. This removes one of Simagic's prior big weaknesses. It may be listed as 80Nm, but to me, the Evo Pro appears to be more affected by wheel weight than I'd expect. It works superbly with lightweight wheels, but heavyweight wheels have a distinct effect on overall control. It's ideal for those looking for a friendly and welcoming sim racing ecosystem. They've done a good job making your experience seamless and providing balanced, rounded feedback that should make most people very happy. However, enthusiasts looking for the rawest possible sim racing feedback may want to look elsewhere. If you have a Simagic Alpha U and you're 100% happy with it, I don't believe you'll get anything extra by jumping to the Alpha Evo Pro. It's a side grade at most, and in some cases maybe even a downgrade. In the box, you'll find a bunch of stickers. Simagic does love those, and it's a nice touch because it screams pride in the product. Nobody can knock them for that. The power supply and cables also line the top half of the box contents. Underneath that is the Alpha Evo Pro wheelbase itself. Wheelbases are, on the face of it, pretty bland and boring, but there's something cool about beholding them, getting your hands on them after unboxing. Overall, the Alpha Evo Pro comes across as refined. Its exterior design is much softer and more developed than the previous Simagic wheelbases, which came across as a bit spit and sawdust, a bit basic. It has a certain style to it whereby if I was to swap that Simagic branding for Logitech branding, it'd be believable. What you'll also notice is the lack of front mounting holes which the previous Alpha wheelbases had. Side mounting brackets cost 30 quid for mounting to a profile cross section, and a mounting adapter costs about 50 quid, so you can still front mount this with the help of that addition, but that's a pretty notable feature regression from Simagic's wheelbases. You can still bottom mount the wheelbase though, which is what I've done here. Also visible at the front of a wheelbase is a set of pins which will eventually be a receptacle for add-ons. None are currently available to test or review though, so for now it's an unused feature and it's not clear whether they're going to bring anything out that really makes us sit up and take notice of it. At the rear are a spread of sockets and USB plugs. However, besides this one USB socket, which can talk to third-party stuff, such as wheels, the rest are dedicated to Simagic products only, and that includes those USB sockets which are only for Simagic. They're not generic ports that you can use for anything else, sadly. Curiously, the Evo Pro has active cooling on board. In layman's terms, it's got a fan, which kicks in when needed, but so far I haven't caught it running. Either that or it's so quiet I couldn't really tell. Active cooling is something you don't see much of anymore, and I think that's for good reason. I would rather the cooling be purely passive, as that means no moving parts, nothing to fail that the wheelbase relies on to function at full pelt, but time will tell if that really plays a part. On that note, at the time of my first draft of this review, Simagic's warranty was still only 1 year, and that was a concern with things like onboard fans to go wrong. But good news, it's now 2 years warranty globally. This takes away Simagic's one big weakness for me. I always wondered what made them not feel confident enough to do so, so good on them for making that right and matching some of their competitors. Once hooked up and brought online, you can see a new feature in action, the Halo ring light. This works in a similar way to the LED bars on Acertex wheelbases. It reacts to telemetry and flags passed down by your simulator, and it does work well. I'll come back to this later, but when sitting idle, it does give the Evo Pro a dash of character, which you can customize in the SimPro software with gradients and color combinations and set it to be pretty bright indeed. A plus for those who want to inject their team colors or some other sense of identity into their rig. And finally, there is a USB pass-through QR available if you want to use third-party wheels with a tidied up wire, though I don't have one to test. I just have a basic Simagic QR which I'm using with my third-party wheels of choice, so that is why you'll see a coiled cable going from the wheel to the rig in most of the clips. So let's get to it. How does it perform? Simagic hyped themselves up quite a bit with the Evo. I watched the same review as you did, so I had myself a bit of expectation. Will it be the force feedback equivalent of an icy glass of crisp spring water on a hot day? Will it redefine how sim racing feels on a fundamental level with brand new next-gen features? No. For all intents and purposes, it's nothing majorly groundbreaking or new, but it does do certain things very well, better than most. I found it to be one of, if not the, smoothest and clean feeling drives I've had so far. Zero cogging was a prominent feature of the launch hype, and I do agree that they've nailed that. Cogging is a motor attribute that contributes to an underlying lumpy feeling that can sometimes be noticeable, so having as little as possible is desirable, a no-brainer. When swishing and soaring the wheel rapidly in mid-corner moments, and generally swinging the steering rack around the track, it feels clean as a whistle, and as a result comes across as more luxurious and refined than the price belies. There's also very little of that crispiness and crunchiness you sometimes feel in high-end wheelbases that foam at the mouth to ensure you feel every bit of force data right down to the smallest pebble. Though I'm not sure Simagic can really take much credit for this, as there are other explanations for it that I'm going to talk about right now. The downside is that the Evo Pro's force feedback seems to come with a dash of mandatory smoothing that prevents you from accessing the full outright agility and power within. I'm convinced of it. Simagic recently updated the firmware on the Evo Pro, V219 just to be clear, which in Simagic's own words includes some built-in damping and adjustments to the algorithm, brought forward in response to customer feedback complaining that the force feedback was too rough. I can feel this built-in damping. Even if I slam all force feedback settings to zero filtering, minimum damping, no interference on all fronts, I can still tell it's there, especially as I've installed the Evo Pro back to back with the VRS DFP15, which is almost the exact opposite in attitude and has more contrast in the signal. If you're a feedback purist, you won't like the idea of Simagic dictating where the line in the sand is, and this is how I feel. If a wheelbase can be any rawer, any more direct, any more unfiltered, let me choose whether I want that or not. I don't want Simagic making that choice for me, and it's this approach that holds it back from being an elite tier wheelbase to me. Elite tier wheelbases should be unbridled and completely at your mercy, beholden to your whims and preferences, not the manufacturer's. I feel Simagic's hand waving over the force feedback algorithms even when every setting slider and option is telling them not to. This could all change in the future if it is indeed down to firmware, but it's still something a portion of you will want to hear about as of now. Speaking of the feedback more broadly, it would also seem from my experience that the ultra low inertia, zero cogging motor is also more susceptible to wheel weight than other wheelbases I've used in its class. Wheel weight affects all bases, yes, but the difference in the experience between a lightweight wheel and a heavyweight wheel is much more noticeable here than on other top-end wheelbases that I feel the 80Nm sticker rating puts it with. When I use this 287mm 1.5kg VRS formula wheel, the Evo Pro is firmly in command and the experience lines up with what I would expect, which is a very vibrant and strong agile wheel feel that has you bracing yourself over every track feature if you so choose to have it that way. But when I use this 300mm 2.5kg grid 911 wheel, it feels more like the tail is wagging the dog. The Evo Pro seems to find it a little bit of a challenge to completely control. Suspension feels wobblier, more rubbery and generally more vague, almost as if it's struggling to put the wheel exactly where it's trying to put it, overshooting itself. I only really noticed it, it's very subtle, but it's because the 15Nm VRS DFP15 that I used before this Evo Pro felt like it had a better grip on this grid wheel. So whatever makes the Evo Pro so smooth and glassy to turn under all conditions is probably what leads to this trait. It's just the trade-off you make. Use a lightweight GT Neo and you'll be getting the best out of the Evo Pro. Use a heavy wheel and I think you'd be better off with one of the old Alphas or something else entirely. I've spent a good while with the Evo Pro, long enough to make up my mind about one thing in particular. Whilst it is very good and very far from bad, I don't perform at my very best on a Simagic wheelbase. Simagic's force feedback approach, their algorithms and interpretations produce a hint of a personality that I don't always see eye to eye with. It's such a subtle feeling that I only pick up on because I have my own biases formed over years, my own burned in preferences of what I think force feedback should be, and my own style. But reviews are supposed to contain opinion as well as facts. I had this same feeling with the Alpha U, I'm having it again with the Evo Pro. There's something unspoken, unwritten. I'd put it in the same category as being able to sense someone looking at you. It's a background feeling, but you just know it. Something about the way Simagic communicates weight transfer and mid-corner feeling holds me back from that final 1 or 2% of confidence with the car, at least when compared to Acertec or VRS in particular. If my life depended on a lap, I wouldn't pick Simagic to do it on. I don't for 1 second believe I'm speaking for the majority, I speak only for myself, and comparing the force feedback of all the brands is like comparing cola brands. They're all cola, and if you like cola, you'll gladly drink any of them, but given time, you will have your preference. For what I like to do, and the exacting purest way I like it to feel, Simagic just isn't mine. If you're an iRacing fan, I find that Simagic's 360Hz plugin strips away quite a bit of detail as well, and you may well find yourself preferring to run iRacing in 60Hz mode, so don't overlook this option if you feel the same way. I certainly feel a big difference between the two modes on Simagic's system, but this could also change over time and no longer be true by the time you get yours. When run with minimal filtering or damping, Le Mans Ultimate feels great but is noticeably less intense or harsh with the Evo Pro than it did with Acertec or VRS bases, which only adds weight to my internal argument that there's some baked-in smoothing going on here. That's either a good thing or a bad thing. You'll have made up your mind the second you heard it. The point being made is to be aware that, figuratively speaking, whatever steel the Evo Pro is made of cannot be sharpened to as fine a point as others, not in its current state as I've tested it. There is still one thing that again stands out and impresses me though, and that's how smooth and refined the wheel feels all the time. I have tried and failed to make it feel rough, digital or crispy. It just refuses. It's silky no matter what, and I really do appreciate that. It makes it feel more expensive than it is, and you almost feel like you can't really get it wrong tuning wise. Marry that to the list of built-in presets and shared profiles that you can use, and the raft of sensible parameters you can play with if you want to create your own, and you have a powerful but approachable wheelbase that almost anyone can get on with very well. So about that halo ring light. With the Porsche wheel, with the screen, I couldn't see it at all. But with the Formula wheel it was clearly visible and it was a nice addition. It adds life to the drive by giving you an in-wheeled indicator for yellow, blue, white flags, whatever it is, as well as ABS and TC nudges to give you peripheral senses. It's nice to have. but it's so dependent on what wheel you're using. Great when you can see it, totally useless when you can't. Finally, does it make much noise? Depends on what you class as noise. It's very, very quiet overall, but it does make some unique grinding noises in some scenarios due to the motor design. None of which you'll hear through your headphones, but you'll still want to know. So what is the bottom line here? What's my conclusion? Every new wheelbase line with some kind of different approach sparks some hope that it will revolutionize sim racing hardware and become the new norm. This isn't it, but it nonetheless brings you a competent, powerful, agile and clean drive. I think the Evo Pro has to be chosen with its specific caveats in mind. It's not as raw and unfiltered as certain other brands, and it's not quite powerful enough to give you the exact same experience regardless of what wheel is attached. So if you're a GT, prototype and formula guy like me, you just need to know that heavy wheels, be they cheap or expensive, may slightly frustrate the Evo. It may only be subtle, but I felt it. If you're someone that runs any filtering and smooth on your current wheelbase already, the complaints I had as a feedback purist that likes to run it as clean and raw as possible, they'll probably simply go straight over your head. They won't bother you one bit, and I think you'll be very happy with such a smooth, spotless wheel feel. But for me personally, having spent time with the Alpha U and now the Evo Pro, I've seen enough to conclude that, try as I might, as good as this may be, and as beloved as Simagic wheelbases are by popular votes, when it comes to high-end wheelbases, I just prefer another brand of cola. There we go. I hope this was entertaining and informative. Don't forget to check the video description for partnered retailers stocking Simagic. Using those links to purchase helps support me, but don't forget to skim the full reseller list and shop around in case there's a better seller for you in your region. There's loads of them. Cheers again.